When I was 14, my dad told me I'd never be more than a guy with a toolbox. Not in a you'll build great things with your hands kind of way. More like a hope you like back pain and minimum wage kind of way. Meanwhile, my younger brother Zach got a standing ovation for toasting a bagel. If I came home after a 12-hour shift laying gravel in the sun, my mom would wrinkle her nose and say, "Don't touch the couch. You smell like hot asphalt and disappointment." Zach, meanwhile, once uploaded an acoustic cover of Despacito to YouTube. My parents shared it on Facebook like he'd dropped a Grammy-winning album. So yeah, I stopped expecting praise by the time I could legally drive. What I did expect? To build my own life, even if it meant pouring literal concrete while everyone else poured lattes and waited for purpose to find them. At 17, I started working for a guy who resurfaced driveways. He paid in cash, swore constantly, and expected me on site by 5:45 a.m. It was perfect. By 19, I was working full-time, learning how to prep foundations, read blueprints, and bid on contracts. No loans. No handouts. No. "You've got this." Pep talks from home. The closest I got to encouragement was when my mom said, "If you're going to do this kind of work, just please wear clean shirts when Zach's friends are over." Meanwhile, Zach was busy finding himself across 3 countries and 5 majors. He went from journalism to anthropology to graphic design to photography, before landing on influencer, maybe. At one point, he borrowed $8,000 from our parents to launch a podcast. It lasted 2 episodes. First one had 6 listens. 3 were from our aunt. Fast forward. At 28, I was running a small concrete and paving company, not flashy, but respected. 2 trucks. Steady clients. I'd paved my way from the ground up, literally. Then it happened. A developer I'd done work for called me about a new project, full strip mall development. He said he liked how I ran things. Called me dependable. $300,000 contract. I signed it at 10:03 a.m. By 10:42, my dad was calling. I picked up, against my better judgment. "You finally did something smart," he said, skipping hello. "Now be smarter, start with a down payment for Zach's house." I paused. Thought it was a joke. It wasn't. "He needs help getting started," Dad continued. "Lost his internship. Still broken up over that Vanessa girl. He's rebuilding." "Cool," I said. "What's that got to do with me?" "Your family. That means sacrifice." "Right. The same family that once skipped my trade school graduation because Zach had a dentist appointment." That afternoon, I drove to their house, the one I'd been covering the utilities for since I was 24. Mom had framed it as helping out. Dad? He just forwarded the bills without even saying thanks. I walked in, past the photos of Zach at prom, Zach in Paris, Zach doing literally anything. Went straight to the breaker box. Cut the power to the upstairs bedrooms. Shut off the main water valve. Unplugged the router. Disabled the thermostat. Overrode the security system, just muscle memory at this point. Then I went to my old room, grabbed the toolbox I'd left behind, the same one Dad once called your future ball and chain. Tossed it in my truck next to a bag of clothes and an old jacket I didn't even like anymore. I wasn't angry. I was done. At 6:12 p.m., I texted my mom. "Please transfer all utility accounts to your name. I've moved on." At 6:40, Zach texted, "Bro, why no Wi-Fi? Dad says you're being dramatic, lol." At 7:03, Dad called again. I didn't answer. Because I wasn't the pavement under their feet anymore. The next morning, I woke up to 2 things: silence and tension. No knocking. No notifications. Just that eerie kind of stillness where you know something's brewing, like the world's holding its breath right before the fallout begins. I rolled over and checked my phone. 1 missed call from Mom. A voicemail. I stared at it, not really wanting to hear what guilt soup she'd cooked up overnight. But curiosity won. "Hi, sweetheart," she began, in that overly polite tone that usually came just before she asked for something. We're a little confused. The power's out and the water isn't working, and your father says maybe there was a billing issue. You've been under so much pressure lately. Congratulations again, by the way. We're so proud of you. We just want to make sure everything's all right. I nearly choked on my coffee. Proud of me? That woman once left me sitting alone at my certification ceremony with a cold meatball sub and a text that said, "We couldn't make it. Zach has a poetry reading tonight." Now she was proud? I didn't delete the voicemail. I just saved it under the file name. LOL. MP3. Then came the text from Zach. "Yo bro, I think Dad made you mad again, LOL. But can you at least fix the Wi-Fi? I'm trying to go live tonight, and my ring light doesn't work without it." A pause. Then a follow-up. "Also, I think the heat's broken? Or like asleep?" This man thought heat was a moody roommate. I set the phone down. Was I angry? Not really. More like lightheaded from the silence. The kind of silence you don't realize you've been craving until it's finally there, when no one's expecting you to foot their bills, fix their lives, or translate their bad decisions into second chances. By 11 a.m., a single email popped up from my dad. Subject line: "Family should be above all else." I didn't even need to open it, but I did anyway. It began exactly as expected. "You've always been impulsive. Even as a child." Of course. Nothing says leadership like opening with a backhand. Then came the meat of it. "Zach is in a vulnerable position right now. The job market is rough. He needs stability. We think it's fair that you contribute a portion of your contract to help with a down payment, something symbolic, not even the full amount. That's what brothers do. That's what men do." Ah, yes. Manhood, defined by how many freeloaders you can carry before your knees buckle. I closed the email. Didn't respond. Didn't rage. Just finished my coffee and sat quietly on the small porch of the duplex I'd been renting since I finally moved out, the one with mismatched chairs, a cracked step, and freedom woven into every loose board. And as I stared out at the street, it hit me. This was the first morning I wasn't tethered to them. No surprise bills. No side comments about pitching in a little extra. No emotional bribes disguised as family dinners. Just me, and air and space. I thought about how many times I'd chosen them over myself. How I held off on hiring a second crew because I was still paying for their cable package. How I skipped replacing my work boots because Zach needed new outfits for brand photos. And the kicker? Every time I quietly helped, they just saw it as my duty. My responsibility. My role. And now that I'd stepped out of that role, suddenly I was difficult. At 5:20 p.m., my mom texted again. "Can we talk? You're making this into something it doesn't have to be." She was right. It didn't have to be anything. But they made it this way, the moment they assumed that was their foundation, their fallback, their fool. And for once, I wasn't picking up the hammer. By the next afternoon, the silence was gone, replaced by a full-blown guilt parade. My phone buzzed like it owed them money. Not just Mom and Zach this time, the family group chat was fully weaponized. Aunt Brenda, who once confused me with a DoorDash driver at Christmas, sent, "Sweetie, we heard there's been some tension. Don't throw away your family over a misunderstanding. We love you." Uncle Ray, who's never once spelled my name right, texted, "Sometimes you need to be the bigger man. You've got a good head. Don't lose it." They were lining up like emotional carolers, trying to guilt-trip me into plugging the life support back in. Where were these inspirational speakers when I was scraping together rent money while Zach posted soft boy aesthetic selfies from a spa in Iceland? When I delivered hot asphalt in 92-degree heat, and nobody even remembered my birthday because Zach got dumped again? Now they suddenly remembered my number? At 2:14 p.m., the missed calls started. 1. Then 3. Then 10. By 6 p.m., I had 17 from Mom alone, 2 voicemails from Dad, and a text from Zach that read, "Are you gonna ghost us just 'cause you got a big boy check?" It would have been funny if it wasn't so predictable. One voicemail from Mom started weepy. I don't understand this version of you. You've always been so helpful. So loyal. So stable. I paused it there. Stable. That's what I'd been to them. Not a son. Not a sibling. Just a stable foundation. Something they could dump their weight on while they lived soft lives, and I cracked under it quietly. Another one from Dad was colder. Your mother's upset. You made your point. We need to move forward now, like adults. Translation? Get back in line, Mule. But I didn't. I went for a walk instead. Something I never used to do midday, because I was always rushing to solve someone else's problem. And somewhere between the rustling leaves and the faint hum of traffic, a memory hit me hard. I was 20. Zach was 17. They went on a family vacation to the Grand Canyon. I didn't go, not because I didn't want to, but because Dad said they couldn't afford the extra ticket. Said, "You're working now anyway. Grown men don't need field trips." I watched their photos from my cracked phone screen during my lunch break, while eating a soggy sandwich behind a concrete mixer. They brought me back a keychain. Not even one with my name. Just one that said, Arizona. I kept it in a drawer for years before I finally tossed it. And now they were acting shocked that I didn't want to play nice? Zach texted again that evening. Can we not be dramatic? Just send some cash and we'll talk. I looked around at the quiet, messy, half-finished living room of my duplex. Nothing fancy. But for the first time, it felt like mine. And not because I paid for it, but because no one else had their fingers in it. No Zach crashing on the couch. No Mom rearranging my furniture. No passive-aggressive post-it notes about dish soap usage. Just me, and the silence I'd earned. At 8:03 p.m., my mom texted again. If you don't respond by midnight, we'll assume you're cutting us off entirely. Financially, emotionally, everything. I stared at the message for a solid minute. Then replied with one word. Correct. She didn't respond. But 10 minutes later Zach sent me. You're a psycho, lol. Then followed it with, also, can you Venmo me for gas? The tank's low and Dad said it's your fault. I didn't reply. Because this wasn't punishment. It was the first time in my life I'd stopped being their foundation. And they were finally starting to feel the cracks. By the next morning, it was no longer just texts. It was Facebook posts. Long ones. Vague ones. Those emotionally manipulative word salads that don't name anyone but practically scream your name in bold, underlined font. Mom posted first. Sometimes the people you love the most hurt you in ways you never expected. All we ever did was give, but I guess that's not enough for some. Prayers appreciated, folded hands, broke a heart, #family is complicated. Brenda commented. You've always been such a loving mother. I hope he comes around. Some kids just lose their way. Some kids? Lady, I once fixed your broken patio step in the rain, and you paid me with banana bread and a hug. But I lost my way? Then came Dad's contribution, a photo of Zach as a kid, sitting on his shoulders at a 4th of July parade captioned. Some memories are worth more than money. A house can be rebuilt, but trust? I didn't know whether to laugh or get a migraine. They were trying to frame this like I turned on them out of nowhere. Like I hadn't covered their water bill for 4 years. Like I hadn't driven Zach to his community college classes because he kept sleeping through the bus. Like I hadn't taken over the family grocery budget when Dad, temporarily, lost his job, a period that somehow lasted 36 months and 2 Apple Watch upgrades. They were rewriting the story in real time. And the worst part? People were buying it. Old family friends started messaging me things like, your parents love you so much. Maybe give them grace? And, saw your mom's post, hope you guys reconnect soon. Reconnect? You mean plug back in so they can drain me dry again? I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I did something better. I finally looked at my own bank account, really looked at it. For years, I'd made money and watched it vanish into the black hole of family emergencies. New tires for Dad. Grocery money for Mom. Last minute, travel funds for Zach when he wanted to surprise his girlfriend in Denver. who promptly dumped him upon arrival. But now, the numbers were growing. I had enough to hire that second crew I'd been putting off. Enough to finally upgrade the rusted-out work van I'd been driving since I was 21. Enough to move into something better than this duct-tape duplex if I really wanted to. And for the first time in my life, every dollar in that account was mine. It felt surreal. Like checking someone else's balance. Then, ding. Another text. From Zach, of course. Hey bro, I see you're ignoring the fam now, but can you at least help Dad? He's spiraling. Spiraling? He has a heated recliner and a stocked bar cart. The only thing spiraling is his fantasy of me returning to save the day. I stared at the screen, thumbs hovering. I could have sent a sarcastic reply. Could have gone nuclear. But instead, I opened my gallery, selected an old photo, one I'd taken years ago during a solo job I did on a crumbling patio when I was just starting out. I had dirt on my face. Sweat on my shirt. A busted wheelbarrow in the background. And the dumbest grin on my face, because I'd finished it alone. No help. No applause. Just work. Just grit. I posted it to my own feed with the caption. Built something from the ground up. No sponsors. No shortcuts. Just me. No hashtags. No explanations. I didn't need to defend myself. Because real work doesn't need a PR campaign. A few days passed. No calls. No texts. No new cryptic, prayer request, Facebook posts. Not even a Zach meme. For a second, I thought maybe it was over, that they'd finally accepted the cutoff like adults. Maybe they moved on. Maybe I could breathe again. But of course, I forgot the cardinal rule of my family. Silence never meant peace. It meant plotting. And sure enough, just as I was finally enjoying an unbothered afternoon and figuring out how to restructure my work crew, Aunt Helen showed up. Uninvited. In person. Standing on my porch like a tax collector with a Tupperware of peace-offering lasagna and a smile soaked in guilt sauce. Sweetheart, she said with a little breathless sigh. We need to talk. I stood there in my work boots, still covered in dust, holding a wrench like I'd just been interrupted mid-scene in a movie called Leave Me Alone. Is this about Zach's gas money or Mom's Facebook poetry? She frowned. Not amused. Your mother is beside herself. Your father says you've changed. And quite frankly, it's hard watching you throw away everything over ego. Ah. There it was. Ego. That magical word people use when you finally say no to being used. I leaned on the doorframe. Calm. Not cold, just done. I paid their bills for years. Covered everything from groceries to therapy co-pays. I even bought the freaking turkey last Thanksgiving while being told Zach needed the money more. Now I stopped paying, and suddenly I've changed? She blinked. But family helps each other. I cut her off, not rudely, just efficiently. Helping is mutual. This wasn't help. This was being drained and then insulted for not smiling while doing it. Helen hesitated like she was reloading her mental script. You're breaking your mother's heart. No, I said. I'm just not fixing it this time. She didn't know what to say after that. Just handed me the lasagna and shuffled down the steps, muttering something about how pride comes before the fall. I didn't watch her leave. I just closed the door and looked down at the lasagna like it was radioactive. And in that moment, something strange happened. I laughed. Not sarcastically. Not bitterly. Just, really laughed. Because for the first time, it felt like they didn't know who they were dealing with anymore. They expected the old me, the one who'd drop everything, apologize for being distant, hand over money with a sheepish smile and say, it's just easier this way. But I wasn't that guy anymore. That night, I did something small but symbolic. I deleted the budget spreadsheet I'd kept for the past 5 years. The one where every tab was labeled after someone else's name. Dad, loan plus utilities. Mom, medicine and food. Zach, recurring chaos. I opened a new sheet. This time, there was just one tab. Me. And in it? Plans. Real ones. I ran the numbers, my numbers. Not theirs. I realized I had just enough cushion to invest in that commercial property I'd been eyeing for over a year. The same one I walked away from because Mom needed urgent dental work, and Dad's truck needed a transmission. But now it was real. I texted the property agent. Told her I wanted a walk-through. Booked it. And for the first time in my adult life, I didn't feel like I was stealing from someone else to invest in myself. I was simply choosing me. And it felt oddly quiet. Like turning down the volume on decades of noise. Later that night, I sat outside and thought about all the things I used to dream about building. My own crew. My own shop. Something that had my name on it, not as a footnote, but as the headline. I thought back to when I was 19, covered in concrete dust, eating peanut butter crackers in the front seat of a rusted-out truck. I had just finished a job for a family who barely paid me. I was broke. Exhausted. Invisible. And I remember thinking, if I ever get out of this, I won't owe it to anyone but myself. It took years. But now, standing here, lasagna still on the counter, inbox full of guilt, I was finally out. And I didn't owe them anything. Not anymore. The day I signed the contract, it rained. Not a movie-style storm, just a steady drizzle that soaked the sidewalk and made everything smell like wet asphalt and possibility. I parked outside the small real estate office in my old truck, the same one Dad used to call embarrassing. Funny thing is, it still runs. Better than their finances. The agent, her name was Carla, smiled when I walked in. "You're early," she said. "You're about to own a whole block. Nervous?" "Nah," I said. "I've been waiting years." She handed me the papers. I signed every line slowly, deliberately. Like I was rewriting my own story, one signature at a time. By the time I walked out, keys in hand, the rain had stopped. I didn't post about it. Didn't text anyone. Didn't call friends or make a dramatic statement like, "I did it." I just drove by the lot, a dusty corner space with a faded sign that still said, "Available now," and stared at it for a minute. Soon, that space would have my name on it. Not metaphorically. Literally. In bold letters above a new office door. No sponsors. No backup. Just me. And then, without planning it, I drove past my parents' place. Their porch light was flickering again. I remembered replacing that bulb 3 times before. Zach once asked if the fixture was haunted. I said, "Nah, just neglected." I didn't stop. Didn't honk. Just kept driving. They didn't know yet. But they were about to. Because the universe, in all its petty glory, decided to spill the news for me. 3 days later, I got a text from Mr. Daly, my old shop teacher from high school. "Proud of you, kid. Drove past the lot and saw your name on the permit sign. Looks sharp." Permit sign? I hadn't even seen it yet. I drove over, and sure enough, taped to the fencing was the city-issued construction notice. "Approved bill out for new contracting office, owner, my name." It wasn't big. Just black and white, laminated. But it might as well have been a billboard. Because apparently Dad saw it. And the missed calls began. This time? 32. Followed by one text. "We need to talk. Now." Then Mom jumped in. "Why didn't you tell us? We thought you were just going through a phase." Phase? You mean the complete withdrawal of financial support and communication was a mood swing? Zach chimed in next. "Wait, you bought the lot near the bowling alley? I was gonna pitch Dad on that spot for his handyman side hustle." That one made me laugh so hard I nearly dropped my phone. I didn't respond. Because now, the silence wasn't passive. It was strategic. I spent the next few days doing actual work, coordinating site surveys, calling electricians, sketching out layouts. Things I used to dream about while unclogging sinks in their guest bathroom or fixing the same broken fence for the 3rd time because Dad refused to pay a professional. Now, I was the professional. And they were just spectators. One morning, I opened my front door to find a package. No name, no return address. Just a plastic container of banana bread. Aunt Brenda's signature move. Taped to the top was a sticky note. "We're all proud of you. Come home soon." I read it twice, then tossed the whole thing in the trash. Not out of anger. Just clarity. Because I was home. And the people who made me feel like a burden every time I built something? They weren't invited anymore. It was a Wednesday. Middle of the week. Nothing special. I was on site reviewing site drawings and sipping gas station coffee that tasted like cardboard and old ambition. The lot had been cleared. Permits were approved. My name was already posted on the temporary sign nailed to the fence. And for the first time in years, I wasn't behind. I was ahead. Then I saw it. Dad's car. Turning into the gravel lot like he still had a reason to be there. He parked crooked, half in the mud, like always. And when he stepped out, his expression said everything: stern, rehearsed, self-important. Behind him? Mom. Holding a thermos like a gilt trophy. And Zach trailing behind in joggers and Yeezys, looking like he woke up in someone else's life and was mad about it. They didn't walk up casually. They marched. Like they were storming my boundaries with polite faces and fake concern. "We need to talk," Dad said, skipping the hello. I just leaned on the scaffolding. Said nothing. "Why didn't you tell us?" Mom asked, looking around the lot like she expected a welcome mat. "You bought property, started a company, and didn't even think to involve your family?" That word again. Involve. Translation: control. Zach chimed in like he'd been waiting his turn. "If you just brought this to us, I could have pitched something. A family brand. You know, a franchise." "A franchise?" I echoed. "Yeah. Miller Brothers Contracting. Dad does books. I handle marketing. You focus on the physical labor. It works." I blinked. Was this real? "You think I did all this so I could give it to you?" Dad stepped forward. "We're trying to help. Don't throw this away just because you're feeling prideful." Prideful. That word felt like a slap. They always used it when I made a decision without their input, when I stopped asking for permission to exist. I glanced around the lot. Every inch of it was mine. The dirt. The fence. The sketch plans taped inside the trailer. They hadn't lifted a finger for any of it. "You weren't there when I worked double shifts," I said. "You weren't there when I crashed on job sites because I couldn't afford rent. You mocked me when I skipped college. You laughed when I chose this." Mom clutched the thermos tighter. "That was then. This is now. We can be part of it." "No," I said, calm. "You want a piece now that it's built." There was a pause. The kind that makes air feel heavier. Dad narrowed his eyes. "You really think you can do this without us?" "I already did." Zach scoffed. "You think owning a building makes you better?" "No," I said. "But not needing your approval? That's better than anything." They stared at me like they didn't recognize me. And maybe they didn't. Because I wasn't the fixer anymore. Not the go-to. Not the family discount. I was the guy they used to lean on, now standing tall with nothing left to give. Mom stepped forward again, like she wanted to soften it. "You're still our son. We'll always be here when you're ready to come back." "I didn't leave," I said. "I just stopped waiting for you to show up." She blinked like she didn't understand. "I brought your favorite," she said, setting the thermos down. "Coffee with cinnamon. Just how you like it." I stared at it. That same flavor I used to drink at 4 a.m., before heading out for side jobs, while they slept in. While Zach borrowed the car. While Dad claimed, "Not now," when I asked for advice. "We'll talk later," Mom added. "Once you've calmed down." I didn't reply. Just watched them walk back to the car. Same posture. Same entitlement. Like they hadn't learned a thing. When they were gone, I stood in silence for a long time. Then I picked up the thermos. Walked to the nearest dumpster. And dropped it in with one smooth motion. It didn't feel cruel. It felt like cleaning up the last thing they left behind. The grand opening wasn't flashy. No ribbon cutting. No streamers. No speeches. Just a table with donuts, 2 big thermoses of coffee, and the people who helped me build this from the ground up. The crew showed up first, guys who used to work out of their trucks, now wearing matching shirts with my logo on the back. Then Carla, the real estate agent. Even Mr. Daly from trade school swung by. He shook my hand and said, "Didn't think you'd do it this fast. I'm glad I was wrong." What he didn't say, but we both felt, was, "You did this without them." I spent a few minutes walking through the office alone. Everything was new, the drywall, the fresh paint smell, the shine of the countertops. But the feeling? That was the real reward. For the first time in my life, every corner I looked at belonged to me. No guilt. No strings. No one waiting to claim credit. I opened the desk drawer and took out a small frame I had tucked away. It was a photo of me at 17, standing in front of a truck with a busted tailgate and concrete dust all over my pants. Back when no one thought I'd make it. Not even me. I placed it right at the front desk, next to a little sign that read, "You build what you believe in." Around noon, Carla came back to drop off final paperwork. "It's official." She smiled. "You're not just a contractor now. You're a business owner." I signed the last page, and as I was about to grab another donut, I spotted something through the glass. Zach. Leaning against a rental car, arms folded, looking like he hadn't slept, or maybe just couldn't believe what he was seeing. He didn't walk in. Didn't wave. Just watched. I stood there for a second, thinking maybe he'd leave. But he didn't. So I stepped outside, drink in hand. He raised his chin. "So this is it?" "Yep." "No call? No invite?" "Didn't think you'd care about real work." He scoffed. "Dad says this won't last. That you'll burn out. That one building doesn't make you anything." Then why'd he drive past it 3 times this week? He didn't answer. "You think you're better now?" he finally asked. "Because you built this?" I paused. Then nodded. "Yeah. Better than I was when I let everyone else decide what I deserved." Zach looked down, then back up. "We could have worked together, you know. Made something bigger." "I already made something big," I said. "You just weren't part of it." He blinked, and for the first time, I swear, it looked like it finally hit him. That this wasn't just a garage. Or a flex. Or a phase. This was mine. And I didn't owe anyone a damn thing. I pointed to the metal plaque beside the office door, freshly mounted, gleaming in the sunlight. It read, "Built without permission, backing, or approval, and still standing." Zach stared at it for a long time. Then turned around, got in the car, and drove off without another word. I didn't watch him go. Just walked back inside, closed the door behind me, and let the silence feel permanent. Because this wasn't the end of a chapter. It was the first time in my life I got to write the next one, without their pen.